I was initially surprised to see 34% of companies in the data set mouse hunting to hit 10K MRR. But then I kind of reflected, and a lot of companies like start off with a self-serve motion. They put something cheap on their website that's like $10 or $20 a month. They go big on product hunt. They maybe put some money into paid on Google or something, and they try to be PLG oriented companies. And I think some of that is the founders don't have much sales DNA. Like they're more technical. They don't want to talk to customers. It's a little bit easier to just launch self-serve, launch cheaply, let customers like self-serve themselves before you ever build out a sales team. And who a lot of companies do seem to default to mouse hunting, even if they probably know they're not going to be there long term. It does feel like a comfortable place for a lot of technical founders.
Maybe this is a weird way to phrase it. Does where you start have any influence on how fast you can grow?
The companies in the data set, regardless of what you chose, they were growing about the same rate at 10K MRR. All those paths were a viable way of getting to 10K MRR and growing at a decent clip. But then there is a really big impact of long-term growth based on what you choose. Companies that are targeting small customers that are early adopters, they're easier to land, but they're also easier to churn. And so one of the things that I'll share here is the retention rates based on the target customer profile. That's where things start really getting off the rails for companies targeting a smaller customer. We took basically the monthly number when they were at 10K MRR and annualized it. So the annualized gross revenue retention for mouse hunters was only 24.6%. For rabbit hunters, it was 31.6%. Deer hunters, it was 70.5%. And elephant hunters, it was 100%. But, for elephant hunters, they had like one customer to hit 10K MRR. It was like one customer, and that was probably on an annual plan. So it makes sense they hadn't had any churn at this stage.
Your ability to get those first customers, it's a double-edged sword. They're just as easy to lead because in my mind, the larger the deal size, the more critical of like a workflow or a solution or a problem you're probably solving with that software. So it's harder to churn off of it.
They're more considered in their purchase, but once they're set up, they really don't want to leave. One thing that I thought was interesting on the rabbit side, mice, very bad target customer, obviously very high churn, and there's some expansion, but just you have such a leaky bucket and the expansion can't offset the churn at all. On the rabbit hunters, so their average GRR was 31.6%, but their NRR was 68.1%. The customers that stuck around there were more than 2xing spend. Still not a great NRR at this stage, but like there was at least some expansion. So if you sell to an early adopter crowd, maybe you sell to like a team or a small startup, the startups that stick around do grow, and some of them can grow like very significant rates. Or you start off with one team and you can kind of go viral within a company. And so starting with that low deal size can have the advantage of a lot more expansion and a land and expand motion. Good expansion revenue, but still a leaky bucket at the end of the day.
For many of these companies, they have to discover is their path to expand within an account based on more usage of the same product? Is it based on more seats of the same product to someone else, depending on how they price? Or is it to cross-sell other products they develop further down the line that they either subsidize the R&D from their funding or from the profits that they're getting from the first?
The smaller initial deal size you have, the more expansion levers you need to make it up. This was all the retention at 10K MRR. The fascinating thing was to look at the retention rates today. And so you might have made your initial decision about who to target kind of on a whim or like maybe to get initial feedback quickly. But that decision kind of gets imprinted on your DNA and your metrics even 3+ years later. And so looking at the data, the companies that initially targeted mice or rabbits see substantially lower retention rates than companies that initially target deer and elephants. And so the annualized net retention rate today is 56% for mouse hunters, 77% for rabbit hunters, 87% for deer hunters, and 93% for elephant hunters. So pretty sizable difference. It feels like something that is maybe a two-way door decision, but which target customer you choose is more of a one-way door.
Yeah, I did not think it would be a one-way door. So what's the sweet spot here? Because it would be pretty aggressive to say out of the gates, all our customers pay us $100,000 or more. Is it that 10,000 bucket? That's what you're seeing in the data?
So we looked at what's the median annualized revenue growth today based on what customer you started at and then what customer you ended at. The fastest growing set of companies in the data set were companies that started as deer and they ended as deer. They were going 22%. The second fastest growing were the companies that started going after deer and then they moved to rabbits. Those are still growing 18%. If you were to choose one animal to hunt initially, what's going to maximize your long-term revenue growth? Deer is really the right choice.
You're saying they're the perfect prey. Why? Because they have available budget, but it's below a certain line, because it's probably something for critical enough that you can't just rip it out. Why do you think that is?
So if you go after elephants early on and trying to get someone to spend six figures, you got to build a ton of product in order to convince someone to do that. And often like that customer is probably dictating your roadmap. Like that one customer, you're building custom software for them. It's hard to tell if that's really going to scale to a lot of other companies. And so elephant hunting is actually really difficult early on. Deer hunting, still a large enough purchase that customers consider it and they stick around, like they stick with you once they make a purchase decision. But we have way less compliance to go through, way smoother contracts, like procurement probably isn't even involved. It still is maybe a crowd that's a little bit more early adopter friendly. Like this is kind of that sweet spot between like, or starting to spend actual dollars on your product, but not so much that it's like a services business masquerading as a software company. When I went all in on my newsletter Growth Unhinged last year, I quickly decided it was time to make the switch to Beehive. I chose Beehive because they're serious about powering the internet's best newsletters. Beehive's all-in-one platform brings together newsletters, websites, and every tool you need to grow and earn. And they keep making it better. You can now launch, host, and monetize your podcast entirely on Beehive. You can host webinars on Beehive, and you can access Beehive through the new MCP. I just use Beehive's MCP in Claude Cowork to audit my site, prioritize SEO fixes, and analyze subscriber trends. It's my newest obsession. If you care about owning your audience, Beehive is a no-brainer. Try Beehive for free by going to beehive.com. That's BEEHIIV.com. Use Kyle30 for 30% off your first 3 months.